This episode is brought to you by Boulay. Now, for those of you who operate within the search fund ecosystem, you probably already know that Boulay is the standard when it comes to quality of earnings reports, tax, and audit services. But for those of you who are newer to the community, consider this. Over the past 20 years, Boulay has worked directly with hundreds of search funds from capital raise to exit, currently assisting over 150 funds in the search phase and another 125 in the operating phase. They work with searchers across the entirety of the ETA journey, from issuing K1s to your investors during the search phase, all the way through to helping prepare your books for an exit at the conclusion of the operating phase. They are the industry leader in performing financial due diligence and creating Q/V reports that your investors can rely on. They provide a full suite of tax services, both for your search fund and for the acquired company. They perform the annual audits required by most debt and equity investors. And they also perform outsourced accounting services, acting as a fractional bookkeeper and controller for those companies whose needs might not necessitate full-time in-house resources. In short, you can safely assume that these guys get it. They've grown up in the search fund ecosystem over the past 20 years, and they have the reputation to prove it. To learn more, go to boulaygroup.com. That's BOULAY group.com. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of In the Trenches. I am your host, as always, Steve Davidkos. So today's guest is somebody that I've been trying to get as a guest for upwards of a year now, and after having just concluded our conversation, I'm very grateful that he ultimately agreed to join me. Aaron Houghton is a serial entrepreneur, having launched more than 10 companies in his career, the most famous arguably being iContact, an email and marketing automation tool that he sold for the princely sum of $170 million prior to his 30th birthday. Among countless other accolades, Aaron was selected as an E&Y Entrepreneur of the Year in 2008 and was listed to Inc. magazine's 30 Under 30 list in 2010. His companies have been included on the Inc. 5000 list of America's fastest growing companies countless times, and he now spends his time running Dory, a company that helps high performers under high levels of stress optimize their performance. If you were to ask Aaron about himself, though, I suspect he'd likely shy away from these accolades and instead share with you the price that he paid to achieve this success and how you might be able to learn from some of his experiences. How, in his own words, his success came with the hidden costs of long-term stress, including panic attacks, debilitating anxiety, burnout, and mental breakdown. We dig into the psychological realities of entrepreneurship quite deeply in our discussion today, and discuss how his struggles led to a 5-year study of how entrepreneurs manage stress and the tools and techniques that they can utilize for achieving high performance while maintaining mental and physical health. Before we dive into today's episode, allow me to conclude with my usual reminder that I'm an active investor in search funds and the companies that they acquire through my fund, Mineola Search Partners. So if you're looking to raise a search fund yourself, or if you're interested in investing alongside me within the search fund asset class, I'd welcome the opportunity to speak with you. But for now, I hope you enjoy today's conversation with Aaron Houghton. Aaron, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Steve. Great to be here.
It's a real treat to have you. As you know, I've been pestering you for a number of months. So I'm thrilled to get the opportunity to speak with you. Let's start with an easy one. Just walk us through your story. Walk us through the chronology of your career, some of the major stops along the way, and what you're doing today.
I have been an entrepreneur for a very long time, and this is, we'll talk some more about, I think, the mental health components of this later. So I'll start by using the word like addicted to the game of being an entrepreneur. I love it. It's my favorite thing to do. Entrepreneurs are my favorite people, and I have built a dozen or so companies over almost 30 years now. And at 44 years old now, that tells you that I started really, really early. And I did. I started building my first companies when I was a teenager, growing up in a small town in Western North Carolina, and trying to figure out how I would have money to like put gas in my car as a 14, 15-year-old. And I was mowing lawns in the hot southern summer heat. and I made a business card, and I have asthma, and it was brittle. I was like, this is an awful way to make money. I wonder if there's a better way to do this. I couldn't breathe. I'm about to pass out in the heat, mowing neighbors' lawns.
Other than that, it was great though.
Other than that, it was great. I think I got like 25 bucks a lawn. So, the payback was huge as a teenager. This is a long time ago. And so I started trying to, figure out if there was something else. And my dad, who was a professor of education at the time, actually put this like printed out paper report in front of me, and it changed the trajectory of my life. And it was like 40 pages of how to start a web design business in 1997. And so this was a really early kind of concept of like what is a web design business. And he said, all right, you've been kind of like tinkering with computers a little bit and learning some early HTML. There's a way to actually make a business out of this. And the first question we had to ask was, can you own a business if you're not 18 years old in the US? Do you know the answer to that, Steve?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't even remember the answer we came to at that time, but that was the first question of like, can I actually own a business?
Yeah.
I think my parents had to sign. I think maybe we ran it as like a sole proprietorship for a while. And then later I incorporated a company when I went off to college. It was an S Corp eventually. So here I am as this kid trying to, figure out how to build this business for the first time. I live in a town of 2,000 people in the middle of nowhere in Western North Carolina, and I'm trying to kind of find my place in the world. And this little business turned into something great. I built a website for my basketball coach. I built a website for the local lumber supply company in town. And we're in a bit of a tourist market there where people come up in the fall to see the leaves and stay in bed and breakfasts and cottages. And so I started getting all these bed and breakfasts and cottages and inns and small hotels and small resorts as clients who, for some reason, were allowing this teenager to come in and build a website for them. I'm sure they all thought I would fail, but I did a good job, built websites, built marketing programs for them, started writing software, and then started writing software that would literally run companies. My first client, it was probably about 2001. And I got the opportunity to build a piece of software that would run an entire business. This business was the software, and they knew what they wanted, and they actually had a bad version of it that wasn't working well. And they said, we need a version that works really, really well. Can you build something? And so I got paid $25,000 as a college student on a 2-week turnaround. Can you believe it? A 2-week turnaround to build an entire piece of software that powered a company. I didn't sleep for 2 weeks, basically, still going to class as a full-time computer science student. I built this piece of software, and it still runs that company to this day. I think they probably run $100 million plus of transactions through it over the decades. And so here I am, now in college, I'm building software, and I built a piece of software that powered marketing programs for small businesses because I'd been kind of doing it manually for some of these businesses as a service provider. And then they start signing up and paying for subscriptions. And that company ended up becoming my most successful company, which was named iContact, which was in the digital newsletter and communication space, had survey tools and social media marketing tools as well. And that company still exists, and the brand name still exists. We built that. I built that with a co-founder, a guy named Ryan, who is a college friend of mine, essentially. And we built that company to $50 million in annual revenue, and sold it when I was 30 years old for $169 million, which is by far the largest success I've ever had among all the companies that I've built. And then I immediately started another company, ran it for 5 years, found myself just feeling awful, having more time and money and flexibility than I've ever had, and not being happy. And just my mental health was kind of at an all-time low, low mood, stuck in it, drinking too many beers in the evenings, just, trying to both be like a successful entrepreneur that kind of was the force behind a bigger entrepreneurial community, and also a person who was still running companies, and just found myself really, really unhappy. And so through all of that, I ended up starting this organization called Dory now, where I research human performance, and we look specifically at high stress business leaders. These are entrepreneurs or executives, and try and figure out what types of things can help them stay healthy through the level of pressure that they're going through. And I tell you that the primary thing that drove my interest in this was the first time I ever showed up in an emergency room having a panic attack and thinking I was dying, and super, super stressed from the pressure of trying to build my company. And the doc comes in, checks me out. I'm probably 25 years old. It says, look, you're fully healthy. Everything's fine. We don't know what's going on with you. They didn't even point to panic attack or even mention it. But they asked me this one question, which is, have you been under any stress recently? And I just thought that was like the most ridiculous question that you could ask me. They didn't know me, so it wasn't their fault. But I remember thinking like, do you know what my life is like? My life is a constant ball of stress. Like I have hundreds of employees that I'm responsible for, like their livelihoods. I am 20 something years old. They're all 40 something years old, have families and kids and retirements they're saving for. And like, if I screw this up, the whole ship is going down. No, probably wasn't true, but I felt like that was true, that it was all on me. And I remember thinking, you just don't, to the doc, you just don't know who I am and what I do. And I also have zero interest in changing what I do. I love what I do. This is something I'm super passionate about. And at that moment, I kind of thought of myself as a bit of a martyr. Like I will die on this hill, and like I might die because I felt like I was going to die that day. And so what I do now is help people that feel like they're under that level of pressure in their lives figure out how to optimize themselves and thrive through it. Simply thrive through it, and honestly outperform everybody else, because most people are getting disabled by that level of pressure instead of enabled by that level of pressure.
Well, that's a great segue into a number of questions that I want to ask you. And I would say that if anyone hasn't read, gone on your website, read your blogs, they probably should, because you've been very open, very transparent about your struggles as an entrepreneur with mental health. And not only is it refreshing to read, but a lot of it resonates with my own experience. So it's quite meaningful to me personally. One of the things that you said on your website was my success came with the hidden costs of long-term stress, including panic attacks, debilitating anxiety, burnout, and mental breakdown. My first question for you is, when did you first suspect that your mental health was slipping? Were there any early warning signs that are maybe now only clear with the benefit of hindsight?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the most common one that I experienced, and that everyone else, not everybody, a lot of other people that I work with now talk about, and it's the funniest thing ever, I think. And it's very small. I'll go to the bigger ones next, but the very first one, that first warning sign, the shot across the bow, is having a twitchy eyelid. Have you ever had this?
Oh my, I don't think I've ever not had a twitchy eyelid.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like it's
Uh-oh.
oddly consistent. And if you Google it, it's like the answer is like, why is my eyelid twitching? It's like stress. You're just stressed out. And there's probably some other like eye disorders that are very, very rare that could be the cause. But for 99.99% of us, it's just like your eyelid is twitching. My eyelid is twitching. And I'm like, what, why is it doing that? And over the years, I started to realize that was such a good early warning sign.
Mm,
Your eyelid starts twitching like, I think pretty long before you start to have other bigger challenges. And so I think that's like just the greatest like shot across the bow of like, man, I could use a couple of deep breaths and maybe a day off or something, or pull back or
no
delegate
kidding.
something that's causing me a lot of pressure. But I'll tell you the biggest thing that made me start to realize, and what it started to do is frustrate me more than anything, was the reality that I was every once in a while, and sometimes in bunches, taking multiple days basically off of work when I needed to be doing things, not for vacation, not for fun, but because I just simply couldn't function as a person on those
Mm,
days. Like I was angry about something, and I just realized that going into the office would cause me to like set the place on fire, like conceptually, that like,
yeah.
I would damage relationships, and that like things would just, not go well. And I would honestly dig myself deeper in a hole. It was those days when I had the kind of foresight to say, the big problems we need to solve right now are not going to be solved by me, because I can't even focus. Like I'm not coming up with any creative ideas. I'm in this complete like fear response or disaster catastrophication of everything. And, I'm not the person that needs to be the leader of this company today. And so whether I was intentionally noticing that or not, the way these days would look is, this is back in 2005 to 2012 when we still went into offices. So like I literally wouldn't go into the office on those days. Then I would make up some excuse about like having a cold or something like that. Like I just don't feel well. And never even myself admitting it was really like a mental health challenge in those days.
Hmm.
Um, and certainly not telling anyone on my team. Like that felt like that would be some sort of like huge weakness that would concern everybody if they knew that I was having, anxiety to the level that I didn't feel like I could work today, or my mood was so low that I didn't feel like I could be around people, or just didn't have the energy to want to go in. So those were the days that really started to give me some awareness that the thing that frustrated me was I wanted to be the person who could solve those problems. And I wanted to be that
Yeah.
that dynamic leader that could run into the office and say, everybody behind me, we got this, right? And on those days I knew I was not that person, and it frustrated me, and I really wanted to be that person again.
Yeah. So whether it was something as simple as an eye twitch or something more meaningful as, your unwillingness to go into work, sounds like your kind of mental health was kind of whispering in your ear that something might be up. But I'm kind of wondering, was
Yeah.
there an instance where it stopped whispering in your ear and kind of started punching you in the face? Which is to say, were there any like acute moments?
Mhm.
Or I don't know, customers leaving, key employees quitting, something like that, that triggered like particularly acute struggles with mental health?
For me, it was the prevalence of panic attacks, which had been like very kind of trigger specific for me before I was in this extreme amount of pressure, and then they just started popping up everywhere. So, and sometimes it wouldn't even be like the full panic attack type response where I thought I was completely dying, but it would instead just be like my heart rate going from resting to like 160 in like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Um, and, it would happen from time to time with specific triggers that didn't really get in the way of work. And then I'm in a board meeting presenting to our board of directors, and I feel my heart rate come flying up. And I'm like, oh my God, now? Like, now's the moment we're going to have this? Like, yes, I'm under pressure and I want to perform in this moment, but like now I'm losing my ability in the moment. Now I'm not thinking about what I'm going to say and actively listening to the other people in the board meeting. Now I'm worried about myself, and I'm getting pulled out of that focus. So those were the moments when I started realizing, I am not I don't have the abilities I used to have. I still have the skills and knowledge, and every day I have more experience. But for some reason, my ability to take those skills and put them into practice is kind of being hit with a hammer before the things come out. And so I'm not as capable as I used to be. And there was a day as well where I was sitting at my desk, and again, very like non-specific trigger. I was sitting at my desk in my office, and I called my head of sales in at the time, who was kind of probably number two in our business, and said, something's wrong with me. I'm going to go to the ER right now. And it wasn't the first time I'd ended up in the ER for anxiety, but this felt very different. It was like my chest was tight. I honestly thought I was having a heart attack. And so I
Yeah.
left the office. I got referred into like a stress echo a few weeks later, checked out everything physically. Everything's fine again. So here I am now being distracted by this anxiety response and like having moments where I have to scare my team and run out of the office. I'm like, this is not the person that I want to be. It was frustrating. It was scary. I was kind of losing trust in myself. Like, all right, what high pressure situation will I be in tomorrow? And what's going to happen in that moment? Like, will the best version of me show up, or will the version of me that completely collapses in that moment show up? And then that's that anxiety loop of like, great, so now I can be anxious about what might happen tomorrow. And it
Yeah.
started spiraling. And so that's the first time I ever sought help externally for anything that I would have called the word anxiety.
So I know that you advise many entrepreneurs and CEOs, you mentor lots of entrepreneurs and CEOs, you're an investor in companies naturally led by entrepreneurs and CEOs. In that capacity, having gone through what you've gone through, are there any like objective warning signs or indicators that you now watch for in entrepreneurs that predict a certain likelihood of burnout happening within the next 6 or 12 months? And if so, what does your intervention look like at this kind of first sign of potential trouble?
If I was a physio expert and some sort of athletic coach, and you were an athlete asking me that question, my answer would be like, come get in the physio lab. Let's check out what your body can do under pressure, right? I'm going to put you on a treadmill. I'm going to make you sprint. We're going to watch how your body changes. We're going to measure your VO2 max. We're going to look at lactic acid thresholds. We're going to watch how your blood sugar holds and electrolytes hold and all of those things. And so what I've created at Dory now are all of those things, but instead of for the body, for the mind. And so we have tools that allow us to calculate something called optimal pace, which is a little bit like VO2 max in the physical world. It's basically the maximum amount that you can push your mind, and it's calculated daily. It changes by small amounts every day. It changes by large amounts over time. And what we found, what it is, it's the maximum amount you can push yourself daily until your productivity drastically falls off because you're out of the optimal performance zone. Essentially, those levels of things in your mind that are analogous to like electrolytes and lactic acid have fallen to a level that you basically can't perform with any reasonable output. And so at that point, you need to stop and you need to do things that will refresh those levels. And so we call that optimal pace. And we've got a really simple free tool that's on our website and on our Instagram, which is Thrive with Dory, Dory. And people use this to calculate their optimal pace every day. And optimal pace is a number of hours. It's the maximum number of hours you can work today until you start to put yourself at risk. And so the simple answer to that question is if you work at your optimal pace, you cannot burn out. It's the definition of it. We're watching things inside your mind. And so if you work at your optimal pace or below it, you cannot burn out. If you work below your optimal pace, you're not as productive as if you work at your optimal pace. So the answer for most people is work at your optimal pace. You get maximum productivity with very, very, very low risk of burnout. So to answer your question, what would tell me that somebody is likely to burn out soon? I would calculate their optimal pace, which takes about 30 seconds for anybody to do. And then I would ask them how many hours they work today. And if it's more than that pace, they're at risk for burnout.
You mentioned this concept of refresh. If they are above their optimal pace, some sort of refresh mechanism is necessary. Can you, and I presume, but correct me if I'm wrong,
Yeah.
my refresh looks different than your refresh. Can you just talk about any commonalities you've seen? Like, does refresh mean time away from work? Does it mean engaging in hobbies? Does it mean meditation? Does it mean none of the above?
Yeah. Yeah. What it ends up meaning, and we've got a big study that we ran around 3,000 different things that people can do. It's movement, it's mindset work, and it's connection work. Those are the top three categories. And if you'll notice, mindfulness did not make the top three. It's lower in the list. It's closer to 10 in the top 10. So it's still something that's used as a category by high stress, high performers who are under lots of pressure, but it's not one of the top three. The top three things that work for people that are under pressure, that's rated 7 out of 10 on a 10-point scale, so high pressure, is moving. So just get it, whatever it is for you, like move your body. Some people that's yoga, some people that's skydiving, whatever it is, move your body. Connection time, pretty straightforward, but living in those relationships with people. Now we haven't updated this to look at like relationships with AIs yet. So a whole nother conversation there, but like relationships, whatever the important relationships are in your life, we'll call those people for now. So that's friends, that's siblings, that's children, could even be coworkers. It's connection time. It's not being isolated, whatever it is you do. So if you can combine those two together, movement plus connection, really powerful. Go on a group cycling ride with 10 people. If that works for you, that's a common category. And then mindset is around beliefs. So that's doing things like gratitude journaling or positive thinking priming, and really kind of intentionally putting thoughts, visualization could even be in there, intentionally putting things into our mind to try and sort of guide where we're going. So those are the top three. We have this app called Coach Dory that's in the iOS store that anybody can use, that's free, that has 3,000 of these things. We call them plays. And it uses community recommendations to tell people exactly what they need. So it's a cool app people can use. You check in and you answer some questions about what you're experiencing right now and how much pressure you're under. And then it says, based on exactly kind of what those different levels are for you, here are plays that are most likely to work for you. And it's from this list of 3,000 things that we have about 7 million data points of what works and what doesn't for individual people as well.
Yeah. What I love about movement, mindset, and relationships is, like, to put a label on it, it almost feels like active recovery. Like nowhere in that
It is.
refreshment, like recovery or refreshment mechanism is rest, watching Netflix for a week.
Mm-hmm.
These feel like active modes of recovery that require real deliberate allocation of time and energy and effort.
Yeah, I think that's the right way to think about it. There's this myth that I held for years, and we can see it in our data now at Dory, that says, the myth is when I go to sleep at night, no matter what I've done to myself to abuse my mind today, I will wake up tomorrow at 100%. And we know that's not true with our bodies, right? If you have a huge workout at the gym, You wake up the next day, you're sore. You wake up 2 days later, right? That second morning after a big workout, you're even more sore. And so we know that with our bodies. But there's this myth with our minds that we go to sleep, we wake up the next day, we're fully refreshed. So on a 100-point scale, we measure this. So what level is someone's mental reserves at when they first check in before 9 a.m. in their time zone in the morning? Where do you guess the average person is? 0 to 100. 100 would be fully refreshed. So if the myth was true, the average morning check-in would be 100%. What do you think the average actual check-in is across 100,000 data points in our studies is?
Oh man, I look forward to seeing how wrong I am. I will
Yeah, let's hear.
guess 60 out of 100.
Yeah, really close. 72.
Oh, okay. So not
So
not not that far off.
not that far off. Yeah. And the optimal performance zone is actually much higher than that. It's usually around 80, 85 number. And so on average, people that live high pressure lives wake up each morning and start below the high performance zone and just go lower. And
Yeah.
then they go to sleep and they come back up to 72 and then they get pushed down again each day. So yeah, we've got to actively recover. We can't just go to sleep. And even a good night's sleep, right? That's just saying, like, let's say we got a great 8 or 9 hours of sleep, which is not realistic for many, many high performers and people in high pressure situations.
One other thing that's on your website that you discussed publicly is a cancer diagnosis that you received in 2009. I'm wondering if you wouldn't mind telling us about that, and you can kind of take that in any direction that you'd like.
Yeah. Yeah. As a 28-year-old, that most successful company I talked about earlier would go from, I think, 14 million to 26 million annual recurring revenue in that year. I decided to go to Nepal and go to not to become a Buddhist, but to actually try and be the most performative version of myself and go consider whether I wanted to climb Mount Everest or not. I've been reading a lot of books about it at the time. And so I got a group of friends together and I said, we're going to go to Nepal and we're going to go to Everest Base Camp on foot for 21 days carrying packs. And we're going to go look at the thing and make a decision right there whether we want to come back in future years and climb it. And in order to do that, I needed a couple things. I needed some emergency high elevation medication that's needed in case of emergencies. There's types of steroids you can take if you get high elevation sickness at really, really high elevations like that. So as a 28-year-old, I went and did something that no 28-year-old males, at least in the United States, do. And I went and saw a doctor because I needed a prescription for this emergency medication that I would only take in case of emergency. And the doctor I went to happened very randomly to be an expert in high elevation medicine. I literally went to like the closest urgent care in my town.
No kidding.
Yeah. And he's like, I've been to Nepal and I've even done this like study in high elevation science. I know exactly what you need. And we also need to do a physical exam before we give you this medication to make sure you're healthy. And in that physical exam, we found a single symptom, which was a little tiny lump in the side of my neck that I don't think I'd even noticed up until that point. Then he said, man, we need to watch this. I don't know what that is, but that shouldn't be there. Let's give it some time. And so I actually went to Nepal, went to base camp. And when I came back, did my follow-ups on this and it didn't go away. And it didn't go away for weeks and weeks. And finally somebody said, we need to biopsy this. And we biopsied it. And I got the call where they don't tell you the results over the phone. And they say, you need to come into the office and
The worst.
and hear the results, which, definitely made me think, well, these aren't going to be good. And they weren't. They said it's cancer. And they, I think initially didn't even know where it had come from. It ended up being diagnosed as thyroid cancer. And the thyroid is a small organ right here that I didn't even know existed. And it had cancerous nodules in it that had spread to lymph nodes in both sides of my neck. And so that extreme activity of deciding I wanted to go to Nepal in the midst of running a company that was growing rapidly, this hobby and this sort of extreme decision saved my life in 2009. I got an early enough diagnosis that we were able to have a big surgery and use radiation and get ahead of it. And here I am 15 years later. And I'll share with you as well that 1 year ago, almost exactly to the day, it was the first week of October of 2024. I got another cancer diagnosis a year ago. And the same sort of pattern emerged. Now I do, as a 44-year-old man, I do see doctors more frequently now than I did back in my 20s running my businesses. But it came off of an extremely violent mountain biking day where I didn't get the right mountain bike that I wanted to rent because I wasn't even planning to go mountain biking. Ended up on this like old jalopy of a bike. My friend said we're going to go ride for 45 minutes. We rode for 3.5 hours in the desert, ran out of food, ran out of water. I was like completely, absolutely beat up by the terrain we were riding on this like terrible mountain bike, which was fun. It was a great challenge. I loved it. And I come off of that. I come back home here in Boulder, Colorado, and I get in a wood-fired sauna with a friend of mine that we've built up in the woods. And so we're out in the middle. You have to park and then hike a trail to get to this sauna. It's like the coolest thing. We heat this thing up way too hot. It was probably, I think it was 195, and we sat in there for an hour, which is way longer than anybody should be in heat. And I definitely got kind of like mild to moderate heat stroke out of this thing. But we were doing it. It was like intense. It was fun. The next morning, I finish my morning meetings and I have a new symptom. And I go see a doctor and I get diagnosed with a new type of cancer, unfortunately. And so I've just spent the last year going through 84 days of chemo and 7 surgeries that have saved my life. I'm now down like 4 organs that I had when I was born that I no longer have. And I'm actually in a really, really great place, which is incredible. But this pattern in my life has continued to show up where doing those extreme things, that crazy mountain bike ride and that ridiculously hot sauna, and then boom, I have a symptom immediately afterwards. And I think that living this type of extreme life continues to save my life.
Wow. Well, first of all, thank you for sharing that incredibly moving and personal story. I'm wondering if, I guess maybe a two-part question. Like, what's the lesson, if any, there? The fact that your extreme actions have led to life-saving interventions more than once.
Mhm.
Um, and also, maybe going back to your first diagnosis in 2009, now that you've had the benefit of time and hindsight and reflection, like, are there any ways in which that experience continues to color your day-to-day life today in 2025?
I mean, it's probably the takeaway I didn't need as a really, really passionate, like motivated, hard driving person because I already felt like life is short. Let's, live a very unique life. I've always wanted to live a life that, not that somebody else would turn into a movie, but that in my own head would be a damn good movie.
Yeah.
Not a normal one, man drives down the street, goes to work, comes home again and hugs his family. Like that was, I wanted something more interesting than that. And so, I'm happy to have experienced these extremes on the business side. I had 250 employees, full-time employees when I was 25 years old. I signed a $16 million lease with a personal guarantee on it as a mid 20 something entrepreneur. I had these incredible experiences. I built this product that still exists today that I built in like 1999, like programmed it myself on my laptop in my parents' house. And that product still exists today and has over $750 million of total revenue that it's generated. It'll probably pass a billion someday. Like these are just extreme experiences that I've had in my life. And then I've had this other side as well, where, I've spent time wondering if I would survive a disease that I probably didn't do anything wrong to get, just sort of bad luck.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's made me, it just made me continue to feel that life is so precious, life is so short. And this most recent round, um, chemotherapy was a little bit different than the radiation I did 15 years ago because it made me really isolated because I couldn't be around people from a safety risk standpoint because my immune system was offline for 84 days in the middle of cold and flu season in Colorado with 2 school age kids. So the level of precaution that we took to keep me safe just completely separated me from the world. And, if there's one takeaway that I have from that, it's that the only thing I wanted in those moments, wasn't anything that I owned. It wasn't even to go anywhere specifically. It was just to be around people. Like I had these recurring dreams of just sitting at a dinner table with 12 of my friends and we had just cooked dinner together and we're having a glass of wine and eating a steak. Like that
Yeah.
was all I wanted out of life in those moments was that.
Yeah. I've read books on, I think it was Bronnie Ware, The Five Regrets of the Dying. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's what it's
Mm-hmm.
called. I'm probably butchering the title.
Yeah.
And there's another book that I've read by Carl Pillimer, where he interviews centenarians and asks them to reflect upon their lives and ask them, what would you change, etc. And it seems to me that one of the through lines among many is that the quote unquote ordinary moments are anything but, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
when you are worried about your
Mm-hmm.
mortality, you're not dreaming about like your exit that you might not get the opportunity to get. You're dreaming about like, can I have one more bedtime, right? Can I have
Mm-hmm.
one more bath time
Mm-hmm.
with my kids? Can
Mm-hmm.
I have one more dinner where, we tell a silly joke? That
Yeah.
seems to me like, to what extent did that resonate with your experience, really being thoughtful of the quote unquote ordinary moments?
Everything that's happened since I've been able to be back on my feet again, which was roughly April 1st of this year. So October of last year through April 1st, just, basically a bomb went off in my life. Everything changed. I'm in isolation. I'm sick and injured and recovering. I had 5 tubes coming out of my abdomen for about 6 weeks. The mobility you have with that is like zero. Can't move, can't even get comfortable. And yeah, it's led me to these moments that I've experienced now, like every single holiday that comes around. I think it's maybe similar to what people experience when they lose a loved one and then you relive each holiday without them, as it comes, right? You're like, "Oh, this is our
Yeah.
first Christmas without grandpa," right? And this is our, we always had this tradition and blah blah blah. So I'm like living that backwards on the other side, I think, where every little thing that is part of my annual routine, this festival at my kid's school or 4th of July or a long holiday weekend or something feels a bit like I'm cheating. It feels like I
Mm.
got another one. So to your point of like that one more evening or something, each one of those things when it comes up and it feels like an annual tradition, um, I have to, I'm pausing in awe and realizing like I'm here for this. Like there was a good period of last year where I didn't think I would see another 4th of July. Or I would watch a movie during chemo and I would see somebody celebrating outside and doing something in summer at a picnic table. And I would think to myself, I don't know if I'll live to see the weather get warm again for the next summer. So each one of those things just has a whole lot of extra meaning right now. And those moments feel really, really special. It's not just Labor Day weekend and we have a long weekend. It's like my first Labor Day weekend. It's all new again.
This episode is brought to you by Oberle Risk Strategies, the insurance brokerage and insurance diligence provider that's been trusted by investors, lenders, searchers, and CEOs for over a decade now. The company is led by August Felker, himself a two-time searcher within both the funded and the self-funded models. He personally runs Oberle's dedicated search fund practice that works with searchers across the entire diligence, purchase, and post-close process. Their diligence offering, which is completely free, by the way, will assess your target company's insurance program and will summarize any potential coverage gaps, the pro forma insurance pricing, and any changes needed for closing or shortly thereafter. In 9 out of every 10 client engagements, they're able to either reduce spend or improve coverage, all in such a way that the searcher or CEO can focus on other things while Oberle handles all things insurance for them. Oberle has serviced over 900 customers across a decade of operation and has an NPS score that puts them at the very top of their industry. But don't take my word for it. Click on the hyperlink located within today's episode description, and we will gladly put you in touch with as many happy Oberle customers as you'd like. Yeah. Wow. Incredible. Thank you again for sharing. I really appreciate it. Admittedly, this is a hard discussion to transition off of. So
Yeah,
I'm just gonna rip the Band-Aid off
let's
and
do
do
it.
it. Um, because there is so much that I want to talk to you about based on your experience as an entrepreneur and CEO and now investor and mentor. And
Mhm.
one of the things that I really wanted to pick up on is based on a blog post that you wrote almost 10 years ago called
Mhm.
Making Time to Think in an Always On World. And what I loved about that post was, as a CEO, arguably you're paid for your ability to think more than any other one skill, but most
Yep.
leaders, especially in small businesses, spend almost no time simply thinking. They just find themselves
Mhm.
constantly doing and just kind of keeping up with the day-to-day whirlwind. So I wonder, like, at the most tactical and practical level, how do you encourage entrepreneurs to create the time and space for themselves to simply think as opposed to just constantly doing?
I think it's helpful to have a written job description for yourself because I think that gives us a little bit of the bandwidth we need to understand that piece of thinking. we'll write things down as a leader, like, my job is to set the culture and to set the strategy and to hire the right people and to put them in the right seats. And, we have to pause for a moment and realize that part of that means that we need to make really good decisions about all of those things. And part of that means that need to have really good ideas about all of those things. And we can't make good decisions and we can't generate good creative ideas when we're in a state of fear or when we're emotionally responsive or we're highly reacting to pressure in our lives. So I think there's two parts to it. One is trying to find, so the first one I would say is probably scheduling the time for it, blocking time either once a week or a week long or a multi-day block every quarter.
Yep.
You hear about some of the greats like, Bill Gates going away on a 2-week think every year. And he actually has specific people he wants to be on that think with because he knows they'll bring out the best in him and they'll bring out the best in each other. So there's things like scheduling it. And I think the other piece is it's really hard to predict when we get into that moment if there won't be some sort of massive crisis causing us problems, and how do we let go of that? So I think we need to have some flexibility to, maybe it's not going to be this week after all, there's a crisis at work and I am going to get pulled back into that. Or even if I took the time away from work, I couldn't be present to be creative and to think and to really dive in on some of these issues because I'm being pulled back into the other thing. So I think there's an opportunity to give ourselves some grace and flexibility around it and not cancel it, but shift it to 2 weeks later into a period where we think we can bring the best version of ourselves to it. This is something that we look at in our assessments with people at Dory when we're looking at where their mental reserves levels are and if they're in that high performance zone or if they're out of the high performance zone. And so this is something where, if we were talking about a specific person, I could say now is a great time to go actually take the think and do the think. And now is not a good time to do that because you're not in a good place. And or your point of active recovery earlier, here's what you would need to do to get from where you are to actively recover back into that optimal zone. And then you can go have that thinking time. What we find is that people with really, really high mental resilience, so we have this model that scores people's mental resilience from our little assessment that people can do, and it's on a 0 to 100 scale. And what we find is that the model gives people scores of 85 or higher if they're what we call superhuman mental athletes, where their mental reserve level never seems to fatigue under any level of pressure. And so these people have a superpower which allows them to be more like think enabled more often. It allows normal work to feel really, really easy to these people. It allows them to be really creative and have really, really big creative bursts almost whenever they need them. And it allows them to handle any type of crisis that might come up and derail that ability at any time. They just have capacity for all of this. The average mental resilience score across the 417 leaders in our most recent study was 65 out of 100, which is not a terrible score, but it just means these people have capacity for like normal work. And that's about it. If they need some sort of big creative push, they're not really in a great place to do it. If a crisis comes along, it's going to completely take their ability away, and they're going to lose the ability even to do normal work for a period of time. Start pushing up into the numbers around the 70s. You start to be able to be a little bit creative, do normal work, not handle too many crises. You get above that 85 number, 85 up to 100. These are people that are not going to be derailed by anything. They can be creative whenever they want. They can handle 10 things on fire at the same time and be creative and still get their work done.
So a think week or a clarity day, as I often called them, I think it was a day a month or maybe even a day a quarter. My memory is somewhat fuzzy at this point. That's probably exemplary of working on the business as opposed to working in the business, as I'm sure you know from your firsthand experience as an entrepreneur, but also your secondhand experience as an investor and CEO. That's a notoriously tricky tightrope for entrepreneurs to balance, and it changes as the company scales. So can you just walk us through like your experience navigating the transition from working primarily in the business versus working primarily on the business, and any generalizable lessons or takeaways that you extracted from that experience?
There's this book that one of my EO, my entrepreneurs organization forum mates recommended to me very, very early on in our journey, called Leading at the Speed of Growth. I don't remember who wrote it, but that's the title. And the concept was just this. It was like, you're an entrepreneur, you've started a company, you're doing everything. And the speed of growth refers to like the thing is growing, you're hiring people, you're building systems. You now have a different job. And so it walks through that process of going from being the doer to being the manager to being the leader of managers, and then kind of like all the way to the top of the company. Although we're all the top of our companies when we're the only person at the beginning, but there's just nobody underneath us. And so the job role is really different. So I just like to think about the businesses that I've built and businesses that CEOs I advise and invest in now are building, as they're just machines. And if we're in there like turning the handle on the machine to make the pasta come out the other side, then that's our job. And we don't have a lot of capacity for the thinking and the strategy and figuring out what type of pasta we need to make in 3 years, or we need to make something else with this machine other than pasta. Or troubleshooting the high level mismatches in the market where there's now a faster pasta machine that just came out. And so we need to figure out how to do better than that. So we've got to lift our heads up as soon as we can. I think the challenge is figuring out when that is and trying not to remain somebody who micromanages the processes underneath them and really empowers people. And I think my favorite single takeaway that I think people can use for this is anytime you hand off a job or a process to somebody else that you used to run, there's an opportunity to figure out what you need to know about that process or that job or that role. And all the things you don't need to know, basically don't make that list. So I like to ask founders and leaders, what are the minimum number of things that you can measure about that role that will let you know with pretty high precision that it's on track and that it's doing great? And then at what frequency do you need to measure them? Less frequent, the better. You don't want to be looking at these things every single day or having to ask every single day. Now there's periods where like that process is on fire and you got to fix it and you dive in. But generally speaking, you're looking at these things monthly or quarterly, maybe sometimes weekly in a report. And what are the things that you need to know in order to know it's going well? And then if it stops going well, even when the numbers look good, maybe you're going to change those numbers. You're going to add a number. You're going to ask a different question. And that's it. And that is how I continued to move myself up in the business, because I needed to move up and get out of the way. And that's how I recommend that other people do it now. Shortest list possible for each role or process that's underneath you.
You've referenced certainly your largest exit. You mentioned a $169 million exit before your 30th birthday. I want to ask you a few questions about selling a company, both commercially, psychologically, and otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at a title page level, selling a company for $170 million by your 30th birthday sounds like the dream of every entrepreneur. And I'm sure in many ways it was.
Mm-hmm.
But that also strikes me as a potentially disorienting experience, for lack of a better way to put it. So, to begin with, can you contrast your actual experience, both during and after the exit, with your expectations for those experiences? And were there any notable discrepancies between your actual experience and your expectations going in?
The number one thing I felt when we sold the business, and it's an emotion that I remember feeling. I remember plenty of excitement, watching the bank account for the wire to come in. That was huge. It took multiple days longer than I thought. It became stressful. What's going on? Wire comes in. Excitement went away. I mean, it was there, but it was like, all right, milestone locked in. That's great. But the biggest emotion I remember feeling was going into the office and like clearing out my stuff. So I was out the day of the deal. My co-founder stayed in for another 90 days. So we were both out pretty quickly. And the acquirer brought in a GM to run the business kind of like a CEO. This was a big public company that bought us. And, putting things in a box and walking out like I'd been let go. I guess technically I had been let go and I wanted to go. And, I've been running this business for a decade, from basically age 20 to age 30. So a third of my entire life and like 90% of my adult life at that point, I had been building this business, which was incredible. I got exactly the outcome I wanted. But I walked out of the office, and as I was walking out, this just wave of emotion came over me. And this is what I was feeling. I was feeling the reality that all of the problems we had in our business, that I had been living and breathing with an amazing executive team and this huge team of people. I think we were above maybe 350 people on the team at that point. We had been trying to solve and really struggling with. These were like the biggest challenges in our industry and in our business that we're working on, that I had zero responsibility for any of those problems anymore. That's what occurred to me in that moment. Like, I don't need to solve the thing that I have been thinking about for 24 hours a day for the last 5 years. I don't have any responsibility to getting the right to coming up with the right answers to that problem, which was posing a real challenge for us at the time. And that was the biggest, I think, mismatch. I kind of pictured like, wow, it's going to be, champagne bottles and corks, and there was plenty of that too. But the piece that feels like it hit hardest was that realizing that the pressure and all of those people's livelihoods was now shifted to somebody else who was going to take care of them, and the big market problems was shifted to somebody else, a new leader that was going to have to take care of them and try
What
and solve
label
them.
would you put on that emotion? Would you call that relief?
Yeah, it was relief. It felt like I took off a 100-pound backpack and sat it down
Yeah.
on the curb and walked away. Yeah. And I don't know
That
if I
was
realized I was wearing a 100-pound backpack until that moment that I took it off too.
that was my experience. Now, I certainly didn't sell my company for $179 million, but almost all I felt was relief. I remember describing it to my wife as like, I feel like I've exhaled for the first time in a
Yeah.
decade.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now, I mean, certainly that was my firsthand experience. And now through secondhand experience, talking to dozens and dozens and dozens of CEOs who have sold their companies almost to a person, the emotion is relief more than anything else.
Hmm. Yeah. And then what about the second piece? My second piece was like the second thing I felt as I like shifted back into normal life was trying to understand who I was and my personal identity. Did you feel some of that as well? Like you were the CEO of this company for 5 years, I think you ran the business where you were
7 years
running.
for me.
7 years. Yeah. Yeah. It's a better part of a decade. And then you get the relief, but now you're not the person that, it says CEO on the business card. Like what was that like for
So
you?
interestingly, so one of the things that we were talking about discussing before we hit record is this concept of like an identity hangover post-exit.
Hmm.
I know a
Hmm.
lot of entrepreneurs experience that. For whatever reason, I actually didn't struggle with that. I struggled with
No.
well, plenty of other stuff, let's be clear. But
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
identity hangover was not one of them.
Hmm.
For reasons that honestly I can't quite articulate.
Yeah.
How about you? Like, did you experience an identity hangover of some sorts after selling iContact?
Yeah, I think, one of the challenges probably being a young founder like that and really starting this business at a smaller level before I was even 18 and then really starting to scale it up when I was around 20 to age 30 was that it was the only thing anybody ever knew me as professionally. Like
Right.
everyone I had ever met from a professional standpoint knew I was the founder of this business. And that's just who I was. And so every new relationship professionally that I'd ever built was around that. And then lots of personal relationships were developed in that time. It's just such a pivotal time in anybody's life, their 20s, when they're like finding their place in the world and starting a career and maybe finishing up at university. And, like that phase, that was just like my entire life. That's what everybody knew me as. And so after that exit, immediately started another company because I think that's all I knew how to do.
Yeah.
And I ran that for 5 years. And then I decided that I really saw the weakness in only being a CEO and founder as my identity and as my personality, because how the business went is how I went. My ego, my identity, my self-worth, my self-confidence was tied to how well the business was doing. And that next business
Totally.
had some great joys and some great struggles. And I found myself kind of riding like perfectly with the wave instead of staying somewhere in the middle and being slightly pulled. I would go all the way to the top and all the way to the bottom. And so I decided to take 2 years off. And my only I had two goals actually I decided to take 1 year off. It became 2 years. And I set two goals for myself. One was I'm going to not have any professional identity for the entire time that I'm taking time off. And I would meet people. I actually moved across the US to Boulder at the time as well. So I was like, I'm going to start new relationships with people. And when they ask me what I do, I'm going to say like I'm a software developer or something like that, which was true. I
Yeah.
have a computer science degree and I once wrote some code. Or I'm going to tell them that I'm a mountain biker and we're not even going to talk about work. And I'm going to just rebuild my like social fabric around a new identity. And then the second piece was really kind of deep rest. And the discipline was one thing a day. I only do one thing a day. So if I was doing this podcast with you in that era, this would be the only thing I do today. I would take my kids to school. I would do this. And then the rest of my day, I would not allow anything to be scheduled or anything intentionally. Now, I might get into something, but it would be all serendipitous. It would be whatever I felt like doing and felt like I needed most in that moment. And that 1 year became two. I always joke that I finally found something I was really good at, not working. it took, took it took me a while. And honestly, the first 6 months of it, I was really frustrated to not be the person I was before. And that's what I felt like the problem was. I was like, I'm gonna keep doing this until I'm totally comfortable with just being a guy who mountain bikes and skis. And when people ask me what I do, I tell them I take my kids to school in the morning, like not a professional identity and not selling something, not having a product to sell, but just being me and rediscovering who that is.
I do want to ask about like the personal and psychological implications of being a serial entrepreneur because on your website, I think you listed like 9 different companies that you either started or co-founded or led as a CEO. So clearly, I
Yeah.
think it's reasonably fair to describe you as a serial entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I'm curious, like at the conclusion of each of those 9 companies, whether you sold or you just left or whatever led to the conclusion of that company, how did you think about what to do next? Like, why become a 9 times entrepreneur instead of trying something else more typical of a post-exit entrepreneur, like an investor, an advisor, a board member, or even just straight up retirement? Like,
Hmm. Hmm.
what decision criteria did you have in your mind to help you decide what to do next?
There wasn't a lot of thinking about that. And I think I have some regret there of just wishing I'd maybe paused and been more intentional. I started investing in companies probably the first time I took money out in an equity round in my most successful business in my kind of mid to late 20s. And it was always fun, but not that fun. it was it was fun to be able to back other companies that I believed in, and it was much more about the people that I believed in, and it was not it just wasn't the same as being in the game. I just loved it when the ultimate accountability and responsibility stopped with me. I love being a leader, and I love being a problem solver, and I'm a real tinkerer at my core. Like I would love to have a product team come to me and say they cannot solve this problem with the product, and I would love to jump in and help them as a player on their team instead of their coach to tear the thing apart and figure it out together. Everybody high fives and we fix the problem. And I just don't get that from being an investor. I get little tastes of it here and there. AI company I invested in 2 years ago just sent me the screenshot of the first dollars transacted through their platform last week. It was like $3,000. Like product works, it connects multiple systems, it made money, it sent checks out to partners. Incredible. And so I was thrilled for like 6 hours. I was like, that's great. Like this is amazing. And the thrill wasn't like, I'm gonna get a big payday someday. I mean, it's so much risk. First dollars into a company, who knows? The thrill was like, wow, I was the first check into this company. Like that felt great. Like, wow, I
Yeah.
believed in them. I helped them. I was the first check in their second round as well. And so that felt great, but it just went away so fast. Like it honestly made me want to fly to the East Coast and show up at their office and get my hands dirty. But that's not what I'm going to do as an investor. I'm a strong believer in stay out of their way and let the innovators innovate. So yeah, it's just not as interesting for me. All of the other stuff, coaching and advising, isn't even that interesting. And that's why like what I do now is most people in my role now would probably be making money by coaching CEOs directly on how to build and scale a business. And I don't do that. I have built a framework for human performance that I work with people and guide them, sometimes one on one, but often in a broader community, for how to be the best version of themselves at work, in their personal lives. And that feels like a real passion. I'm building tools, I'm running studies. Like I feel like I have a product and something that I can work with. It's not just sharing advice. I find the sharing advice kind of boring.
We discussed the quote unquote identity hangover that a lot of entrepreneurs have post exit. And looking at someone who's been a 9 times founder slash entrepreneur, I'm wondering to what extent did serial entrepreneur as part of your identity inform what to do next? So, said another way, was there any aspect
Mhm.
of you that wondered if Aaron's not an entrepreneur and a founder, well, then who is he? Um, did identity, specifically that of a serial entrepreneur and CEO, do you think that
Mhm.
consciously or maybe even subconsciously compelled you to continue to found startups?
I wanted to do things that I felt good at. And in those moments when I sold companies or closed companies or jumped from one company idea to the next, the only recent memories I had at that point, because I was so far in on this entrepreneurship game, that would tell me I should do that. This is something that I'm likely to be successful at. We're building companies and building products. Um, there's a lot to my identity, and using the example of like a father, a son, and a brother, and a mountain biker and an adventurer, and all these identities that I hold. I didn't have recent stories at that point that really lent a lot of credibility to those things. Like I was a decent sibling to my brothers. I was a good enough son to my parents. I was a very below average mountain biker who was super out of shape for spending too much time in the office, despite my passion and enthusiasm for it. It just didn't feel like something that I was going to be good at. And so I was craving that validation of like, let's go do something I'm good at. So I'd start another company again. And then I'd have less space for all those other identities again. And it just continued to perpetuate until I really ripped the Band-Aid in 2017 and forced those 2 years off. And then I started to develop some recent stories of, man, mountain biking's really fun. I'm pretty good at it. Like I'm getting in pretty good shape. And, I set a new PR on that route today on Strava. Like that feels good. And I started to just be able to see progress and see improvement in all these other areas of my life. And wow, that was great to be there for that, distant relative family funeral that I probably would have skipped, 2 years ago when I was running the company. But now I can live into that identity of a family member and a supporter. And like, wow, that felt really good. So I lost those stories. I lost touch with how I can be happy and successful and fulfilled in those other roles, in those moments of building, because I loved building. And it just continued to whittle it down to the point that I'd kind of forgotten who I was until I forced the function to bring all those pieces back to life again.
How do you select which companies to get invested in today, either as an entrepreneur or as a mentor slash advisor? Like, are these purely economic considerations that any other investor would use? Or is there something else different or unique within the decision criteria that you use to select what company to get involved in next?
I'm probably the worst angel investor by like dollar performance of all times. So you don't want to fast follow this strategy. Is that a good way to start the answer? Everyone's going to
Ooh,
skip to the
fantastic.
to the next part. No, my angel investing is it's in people building real products that have scale that can change the world. It's in large part investing in people that I've worked with in some capacity before that I believe in and want to help give them a platform to do the things that I've done in the past, if that's what they want to do. And most of them, if they're coming to me for capital for a business, that's what they want to do, is build a big company, have a big impact. Um, all of my angel investing, I think this is correct. Every single no, I did one in Illinois, but every other one has been back in North Carolina where I built my most successful business. And I just feel a lot of loyalty and appreciation for all the people and the culture there and the leaders there that helped make that company successful. In fact, the company in Chicago I invested in was somebody I knew from North Carolina who just happened to move to Chicago. So it's back in that network of people that helped me, and sometimes new founders I don't know, but from that region. I've just been a big believer in it. And there's a couple that are really up that just haven't exited yet. So I'm hoping someday that it'll actually look like a really good angel portfolio return. I've got probably close to 20 deals that I've done over 15 years or so. And so I think it'll come around. It's hard to judge, but you always know about the ones that are going to go out of business first because they go out of business first, and the
Of
other ones
course.
are still holding on. Yeah, so we've got a couple companies that'll probably go to $100 million. One that can go to $1 billion. That's very small now, and a bunch of others that are doing what lots of companies do and chugging along, trying to find their place.
So you're writing a book currently called
Yeah,
Startup Burn about how entrepreneurs experience and manage stress. And I want to see if I can try to articulate this question properly. I've read a million biographies and autobiographies written by successful entrepreneurs. And a lot of those books basically say something to the effect of like, do what I say now, but don't do what I did then.
yeah,
And in a way, it's almost hard to believe that advice because some of what they did then, as unpleasant as it was, might have been necessary inputs
yeah.
into their success formula. So,
Hmm.
as you write your own book, like how did you think about the sources of pain and stress and sacrifice? Like which were actually necessary ingredients to your
Hmm.
success, unpleasant though they may have been, versus those that were totally unnecessary and not at all predictive of your ultimate commercial success? Like, did you explicitly contemplate that as you were writing the book? And if so, like how did you kind of manage that tension?
Yeah, I think we all love that advice of like, man, as a first time entrepreneur, cut down the stress of travel by taking your private jet, right? Hey, thanks. That would be nice. From everybody who's exited for $1 billion. Um, and it feels out of touch, or it certainly feels like from like the other side of the experience. Um, and I think I felt a little bit of that even from my like big city private equity investors when I was running my business too. Right? These guys are like super healthy and training for like a 10K together. And I'm like, well, wouldn't that be nice to like have any time to do anything
Yeah.
for myself? They're like, you should join us. And I'm like, wow, I'm like 40 pounds overweight and haven't exercised in a year. Like, yeah, sure. Like I would die. Thanks. Like it just felt kind of like out of touch, right? It's like,
Yeah.
thanks. But like, you guys are probably working 40 hours a week and you know that you'll have money even if my deal goes south, and I could be broken on the street and starting over at 30 years old. If this doesn't go well. So like very, very different amount of skin in the game. I think the question that I think it's similar and maybe more challenging is, can you build a successful business and come out of the other side of it healthy and thriving and happy about how the experience went, and not have to spend multiple years trying to kind of like decode a bunch of trauma that you gave yourself along the way. And that was my experience, is coming out of it not super happy and needing to spend 5 to 10 years like decoding and unwinding traumatic events from that period of time where I didn't take good care of myself and I didn't manage or pay good attention to my mental health. And so I think the answer to that is yes. And that's what I've built tools around, is trying to help people who are in that moment under that high level of pressure figure out what decisions they can make with a very limited number of things we can actually control in those moments as a CEO and founder and a leader, to figure out when is the right moment to push harder, when is the right moment to push back. I think about this as like, there's this car analogy I like to share around like a high performing engine in a race car. And as entrepreneurs or high performers, what we often do is we get in our metaphorical car, which is us and our minds as we use them at work, and we realize we need to go as fast as possible to the next place we're trying to get to. So we put the gas pedal all the way to the floor, and the engine crosses the red line, and we go as fast as we can, and we make it to work the first day or wherever we're going, and we say, wow, big success. I went extremely fast. The engine sounded like it was going to blow up, but it didn't, thank goodness. All right, new pattern developed. This is how I drive every day. So the next day we get in the car, we put it all the way to the red line, and after a couple of days of doing this, the engine blows up. And we come out of that experience with the wrong learning, and we blame ourselves, and we say, man, if we were just a tougher engine, we could go this fast all the time. And then the second thing we do is we blame the car, and we go out and buy a new car in the metaphor, and then we go back and do the same pattern again the next day. And the reality is there's a better optimization to be made, which is to work right below that red line. If we can figure out where that red line is and to work right below it, that is the fastest we can safely go. And some days that answer is like 3 hours. You can work 3 hours today. That's it. Beyond that, you're going to blow up the engine. And some days, for some people I work with, it actually can sometimes be as high as 18, which is in our model and our system that we've created to calculate this for people, is the maximum. We don't ever suggest anyone works more than 18 hours, but that someday for some people is their maximum, where it says like, you have the capacity to actually go for 18 hours today. We're not telling you should, but if you need to, or there's some sort of crisis that pulls you in, or you want to sit down and solve all of your company's problems in one day, put them on a whiteboard and lock yourself in a room, you got 18 hours, you can actually do it. And so I think knowing where your red line is and working right below it is the way to get through this thing. Not just coming out the other side feeling like you had a great experience and you don't have 10 years and $100,000 worth of baggage that you need to unwind on the other side, but actually also be maximally productive along the way. Because when you're constantly crossing the red line and blowing up your engine, there's the downtime and the cost of buying a new car and the downtime of finding a new car and all this productivity we lose. We started this conversation by you asking me what were those warning signs, and those were those days off, right? When I like couldn't even come in because I couldn't function, I couldn't operate. Those were the days when I'd blown up my engine and I was out buying a new car, and I was wasting time and productivity with that. So I think there's this magical intersection between maximum productivity and maximum happiness and maximum health. And they all overlap in the middle with this concept of optimal pace, which is that red line. What is your red line every day? Work right below it. So I think that's a tool that anybody can use when they're in the moment, when they're in high pressure, and they don't have to have the experience or the wisdom or the financial resources that I have now in order to do that. They can use that on day one in their first company, starting with nothing like I had when I started.
I'm wondering what motivates and fuels you today. I mean, I don't know this for certain, but I would imagine that at least financially speaking, you probably don't need to work. So what is it that gets you out of bed in the morning, gets you excited to invest, to mentor, to lead, to write? How do you think about your fuel? What is it that keeps you energized and motivated today?
This is really my moment to have an impact in other people's lives because I'm here on earth and alive today, and I have energy and I have a fair amount of wisdom and experiences from all the companies I built and all the personal roller coaster moments along the way, and the things that I've learned from that. And so I just feel this huge amount of energy around having that impact while I can have it. And part of that is my health journey, where some things around the future are uncertain. And part of that is I feel like there's this really nice intersection at 44 years old now where I've seen a lot of things and I still have a lot of energy. And I
Yeah.
think I can only imagine that's going to change a little bit as I get older, where I'm have a little less, I'll have seen more things, but I'll have a little less energy. And so I just feel like there's this huge opportunity right now for me. Like this is the inflection point to have an impact in other people's lives. And, some of it is kind of like a legacy thought of like, it sure would be cool that someday after I'm gone, people will feel that I made an impact on the world or humanity or even just them individually. That feels good to me. But that will only feel good to me for as many days as I'm on this earth. After that, that doesn't go with me. And part of it is those moments now where I can interact with somebody. And for instance, I'm doing a one-on-one work with the recovery protocol I do right now with a neuroscience executive on the East Coast who's launching a neuroscience drug to market right now. He's working 14, 16-hour days. This is like a huge inflection point in his life, and hopefully will launch him to whatever's next for the rest of his life, which could potentially be never working again, or it could be something completely new that he's passionate about as well. And to be able to be like in the room in that moment with somebody is such a gift for me. That pays me now in terms of the gratitude I hear, the impact I can have, the results that we see together, the ability to help somebody feel more calm through a difficult situation by saying, I've seen this playbook before. Here's what I would recommend you do today and tomorrow and the next day. And so that feels really good.
I'm wondering what your current definition of success is and whether that definition of success has changed or evolved over time.
Yeah. When I was 14 years old, starting my first software business, success was literally these people that I was seeing in paper magazines. Do you remember magazines? They used to print them on paper. Yeah. Like Fast Company and Wired and Business 2.0, and reading these articles as a 14-year-old about like, 27-year-old CEO of blah, blah, blah on the West Coast of the US, and just thinking to myself, like, 27-year-old CEO? Like that doesn't exist in any other world. Like, you put in the time, you work in the factory, you become the CEO maybe when you're like 72 and you get a couple years in the seat. And so there was this new world where people with tech skills and business skills could be the CEO at 27. And I remember that article. It was like, this is his third company, like third company at 27. Like what? So that was success to me. That was somebody, and it wasn't even the huge exit that they had had per se, but it was that somebody would call them CEO at 27 years old, and that they had done it, enough multiple times that people would respect their opinions on things.
Yeah.
And as this kid growing up in a small town, of 2,000 people, I'm looking at this going like, well, that's a path forward for me in this big world to find, relevancy and to have an impact. So that's what it looked like then. What it looks like now is moments living in my non-professional identities, which for the most part comes down to time doing activities that I love with the people I love. I think that's
Hmm.
it.
And the concluding question that I try my best to always conclude with is what is the most meaningful lesson that you've learned over the past 12 months? And that could span any domain of your life, commercial, personal, family, etc. Does anything come to mind?
Hmm. In the last 12 months. Yeah. I thought we were going to go, I was going to give you one across my whole life.
Oh, I'll take that too.
Yeah. I think the one across my whole life is just try to have an impact with one person. So, like when
Hmm.
I give a keynote, I gave a keynote last Tuesday to 75 global executives here in Colorado for their annual retreat. My goal is that one person thinks about something differently or gets some value from that. Not that all 75 people do, but that just one person does. Like I've lowered the bar so far that it allows me to say something and share something or be someone that inspires one person really strongly, and I find that more valuable than inspiring 75 people moderately. And so I've tried to really be true to who I am and the things that I believe in and not worry about I might have offended 65 of those people, but if one came out of it saying like, wow, man, you really changed my life with what you just shared there. I'm going to think about things and do things differently now. That's the win for me. I'm going to try with the 12 months one too, because it's been a really wild 12 months for me. So
Yeah.
I would say that if there's one big takeaway, um, the universe is made of people, and people are what really matter.
Yeah. I said that was the last question, but I'm going to ask you one more.
Good.
You've dealt with a lot of adversity. Started in 2009 from your first health scare. You had a
Yeah.
health scare more recently.
Yeah.
You've dealt with a lot of shit personally and professionally. What have you learned about yourself through the course of dealing with all of this adversity? Like, what do you know about Aaron today that you didn't know 1, 2, 5, 10 years ago?
I shared this quote in that keynote last week. I need to keep the book right here so I can read it, but I'll paraphrase it. It's we spend all our lives trying to increase our bank account or increase our status or buy nice clothes or buy nice jewelry in order to try and find safety in our lives. There is no safety. The only path forward is courage.
Mm,
And this was in a book that had nothing to do with business or self-development. This was a beautiful story about a general saving a kidnapped girl in the post-Civil War era in Texas. It's called News of the World if anyone wants to read it. It was right near the end, and that's the thing I've learned about myself was that all of the things that I thought I was doing to create safety in my life, going back to this living an extreme life, maybe saved my life twice now. All of the things that I thought were creating safety in my life actually were not the useful tools when things got really, really dark and really, really hard and I didn't see a path forward. The only tool that I really needed in that moment and that I used and I've seen myself use is courage.
incredible. What a treat, Aaron, to speak with you today. I've learned a lot. And for anyone who is interested in getting in touch with you, learning more about your book, reading some of your content, etc., what's the best way for them to go about doing that?
All of the research and the work I'm doing now lives at thrivewithdory.com and on our Instagram, which is at thrivewithdory. And I'm sharing almost daily updates on what we're learning with our research and progress with the book and what we're learning and working with thousands of leaders under high pressure all around the world. So please come check us out. We've got a community people can join as well, and we'd love to support anyone.
What a treat. Thank you so much, Aaron, and what a pleasure it was speaking to you.
Yeah. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate your time.